Welcome back to part 2. If you haven't watched part 1, go watch part 1 or else you'll be confused. Part 5, round 3. Okay, so just to set the record straight, Dartmouth doesn't do themed rounds or anything like that. So no like philanthropy round or sisterhood round or anything like that. So round 3 was just pref night. You get invited back to a maximum of 2 houses, you go to a few like really emotional parties, and then you have 3 options. 1, rank each house. If you really like your first one, you'll get a bid. If you don't get a bid from them, hopefully you get one from your second. 2, if you only like one of your 2 houses, you can suicide bid, which is usually highly discouraged. It's basically when you say, I will only accept a bid from this house. If the other house gives me a bid, I don't want it. It's this house or nothing. And if you do that, you're not allowed to rush, at least at my school, for a full calendar year if you don't get a bid from your top house. 3, you can drop out of recruitment. For the record, you can drop out at any point during recruitment, except after you sign the like MRABA, I think it's called. You can drop out until you sign this form after you submit your preferences on pref night. The day started out pretty chill, well as chill as it could. Was stressful. During rush, it's all anyone talks about, right? Like, it's all you think about, it's time consuming, it's mind consuming. I got a text from Michelle, the president of the inter-sorority council, saying basically that Emily had this big econ test she needed to study for, so for the next 2 days she would serve as my ROGAM. You know, whatever, I wasn't mad. So I went to her office to, you know, meet with her and get my schedule for pref night. You know, we had a fun convo. I told her about my rush experience so far, and I was like weirdly like upbeat and optimistic, like woohoo, rush is almost over. Asked for my schedule. So she looked at her computer, she looked back at me, and she said, so you got invited back to so-and-so. And I kept waiting for there to be an and, like I kind of expected there to be an and. And so I was like, just so-and-so? And she was like, just so-and-so. And I said, oh, okay. As you can probably tell, so-and-so was one of the houses that I didn't feel super connected to. She could tell that from my expression, I guess. So she told me, you know, the time of the party, some positive things about their house, and told me to text her if I needed her. I said, okay, thank you. I was pretty unfazed in that moment, to be honest, until I stepped out of the building. I called my best friend, I told her what happened, and that's when it hit me. I ran back to my dorm and I paced around the room, and when my best friend eventually came home, I just started sobbing. I felt it so intensely. The it I keep referring to, by the way, is shit. I felt like shit. They didn't want me, they didn't like me, I wasn't pretty enough, I wasn't good enough for almost everyone. That meant I was clearly uninteresting, clearly annoying, clearly missing something. And it was all my fault. It was my personality, my body, my face. I felt like every insecurity that I ever had was being validated. And man, the stupidest thing is, looking back, I didn't even care that much. Like, I didn't know what I was doing or what I wanted. No house that I had gotten rejected from truly felt like the right place to me. Like, it could be my new home, where the sisters there could be my sisters, you know? There was never anywhere I felt like I was supposed to be. I never felt comfortable, not once during the rush process, but I still felt it so f***ed up. So I was very sad that day. My best friend offered to drop out of rush with me. I told her that was stupid, obviously. She loved the houses that she got, you know, I appreciated it though. I texted some upperclassmen friends for advice. We called up Addison. Addison came over and I cried with her for a while. We called up Michelle. I cried with her for hours, which I really appreciate. By the way, she was president of the inter-sorority council in the middle of recruitment, spending hours with me as I just cried like an idiot because I hated myself so much. She consoled me far more often than was fair that term, and if she sees this, I need her to know that I was really going through it that term, and I really appreciate her letting me take up so much of her time. I didn't stop crying until I fell asleep, and it was as stupid as it sounds, but it sucked so bad in that moment. I put so much time and like nervous energy into the process over the past like week, you know, pushing for something, the thing that everyone else had or, you know, was about to have, and I felt like I was about to come up with nothing after all that. In that moment, I like couldn't imagine being an upperclassman and not being affiliated. I knew the house that I got invited back to wasn't right for me. The girls there were wonderful, I still think they are, but I wasn't comfortable or excited in the way that I felt like I was supposed to be. I decided to go to the party anyway though, for like confirmation, or maybe it was closer. I spent the whole party talking to a person that I'd connected pretty well with during round 2. We talked about her experiences and, you know, my concerns and my hesitations, and she obviously wanted me to want to be there. And honestly, she was pretty convincing. And I left there honestly like unsure of what I was gonna do. On the one hand, I was really feeling like Greek life in this moment wasn't the right decision for me, but on the other hand, I was so scared of like all of the FOMO and everything that I would be missing out on by not being affiliated. I left, I went home, my roommates were still out at their parties. Pref night's the first round that the ball is really in your court, right? Up to this point, it's been the houses basically making all of the decisions, but during pref night, the ball is pretty much in your court. So I made a fat pros and cons list. I blasted Sit Still, Look Pretty by Daya, and I sang and I danced and I screamed. I had a friend over who wasn't rushing, wasn't into Greek life at all, and, you know, asked for her like completely unbiased advice. When my roommates got back, I asked for theirs too. Everyone had different opinions. And it was probably like 11 p.m. by the time that I met with Emily. She had finished her exam by then, to make my decision. And after like a semi-long conversation, I told her that I had made the decision to drop out of the rush process, and, you know, maybe I'd try again later, but in that moment it wasn't right for me. I had to fill out a form saying that I was dropping out of rush just so it could be official, and I wrote this dumb ass long paragraph in the like why box. Bro, I felt like I was being so deep. I really felt like I was saying something. Emily told me right after that I had clearly thought about this more than most people, which I'm pretty sure is just a nice way of saying, bitch, it's not that deep, but okay. We parted ways. My rush experience was over. Or so I thought. Part 6, bid day. So I woke up Saturday morning, it was bid day, kind of relieved, but mostly anxious about the inevitable FOMO that I knew was coming. All of my friends got their top houses, and I was super happy for them. Usually sororities hang like welcome posters on new members' doors, so my friends spent that afternoon making a poster for me for being unaffiliated, which was super cute. Then early in the afternoon, I got an email saying that I had received a snap bid. So a snap bid is when a sorority is under like their quota, or like the maximum amount of girls that they can take. So they look through the list, see all the girls who didn't get a bid, and they extend, you know, one of those extra spots to one of those girls in case like they wanted it. And the funny thing was, I had got it from the sorority that I had turned down the night before, and then I had gotten another one an hour later from one of the houses that I visited during round 2, but by that point I had definitely made my mind up on just like, I am going to be unaffiliated, like this is just who I am now, so I said no to both. Well, I ghosted both, same thing. My roommates were gone on like their bid day adventures by like 5 p.m, about to get absolutely wrecked by their new sisters, in a fun way, I imagine. So, you know, I was just hanging around the dorm for a little while, and then my unaffiliated friend, who I had hung out with the night before, asked if I wanted to go out to the frats on bid night. Every single house is filled with new members of the frats and the srats. Everyone is getting trashed with their new like brotherhood and sisterhood for the first time together. It's a whole thing. It's one of the craziest nights of the term. Hell yes, I would like to go out to the frats and crash their bid nights. So she came over, we dug out a bunch of flair that we had on hand, put on ridiculous outfits, and then we met up with some different friends at different frats and their new and different Greek brothers and sisters. It was kind of hilarious. It was crazy but hilarious. I kept getting people asking me like, are you in this sorority? Are you a sister? Are you here? And I was just like, no! And for like at least a week, people were really confused about where I was, or, you know, turns out I wasn't. However, that night quickly got a bit too crazy, and I was dealing with the repercussions of that for the remainder of fall term, and that's all that I'm gonna say about that. It was fine, I was fine, I didn't do anything wrong. It was just another thing that made me hate my school during that term. Rush might have ended, but this story is far from over. But I want to take a quick minute to reflect on a few things, and, you know, even some of the mistakes that I made during Rush. First off, I treated some conversations like an interview. Don't do that. House members are trying to learn more about you as a person during Rush, you know, how interesting you are, how fun you are, how you'd get along with and support the other sisters in the house. Don't be robotic, don't try to show off, don't lie. It won't end well, you know, just smile, be energetic, fake it till you make it, as always. Everyone is fake. Have some questions or like talking points in your back pocket in case there's like a lull. So like I said, I didn't go into Rush with, you know, any particular house in mind. In fact, I went in with nothing in mind. I think that both extremes are bad. You know, in my experience, it's healthier to have a few houses that you're really interested in and, you know, could see yourself being a part of, but, you know, never restricting yourself during the process. If you go through recruitment and, you know, at some point along the way, you realize you're not into it, you're not into it. It's fine. If it's not the right time or, you know, the right fit, or you just have some bad luck, then that's the way it is. You know, it might suck in that moment, but it'll be okay. And I can say that now, you know, a year and a half separated from that moment when I was just sobbing in my room for a whole day, but it's true looking back. Lastly, I get asked sometimes by prospective students usually what it's like to not be affiliated, or if there was something about my identity that made Rush particularly difficult for me. First, you know, it's fine to be unaffiliated, like it's genuinely fine. It's definitely less stressful. It might be a little less fun. I lost some really close friends after Rush, which sucked, you know, and not all, but like some of the upperclassmen women friends that I thought I had made during Rush completely ignored me and never talked to me again after I dropped out, which also sucked. And I'm not gonna lie, it can be really lonely and there's a lot of FOMO. It was like suffocating FOMO that first term. I was so sad. I felt so alone that term. And I don't know how long that would have lasted because it was a whole year until I came back to school again. But you know, I also didn't have to pay a dime or deal with any of their drama, so. And to the second question about identities, yeah, I do think that there were a few aspects of my identity that made Rush more difficult. You know, I had never met somebody who was like affiliated before coming to Dartmouth. You know, college wasn't a super common thing in my family, you know, certainly not Greek life. I'm low income, I could never travel, I have a bit of social anxiety, I'm multiracial, so it can be complicated to talk about my background. I couldn't naturally connect or relate to a lot of people in those spaces. You know how low-key traumatizing an experience it was, because it's been a year and a half and I still remember every single detail. Like I said, and like most of my subscribers know, I left Dartmouth after that and I spent a term doing research at MIT. Then I took classes remotely, then I did research for MIT again remotely, and then I finally went back to a campus where you weren't even allowed to step foot into another student's residence hall. So community isn't really a thing that I've had for a really long time, and honestly, I don't know if I've been truly happy since the summer of 2019. But that's besides the point. Like this video if you've been sad over the past year. But to be honest, I've learned a lot about myself since Rush, and the circumstances have really forced my independence. I was already kind of an independent person, but this has really solidified that. And you know, what happened happened for a reason. Like I said, there was no place that I felt truly comfortable at during Rush. It sucked, but it's fine. Since then, you know, I've also learned more about each sorority and their members, and now I actually understand where, like, you know, I could maybe fit, theoretically. Part 8, it's not over yet. Oh, this is stupid. Which is why I'm putting myself through all this pain again. Yeah, I'm the idiot who just spent a half an hour bashing Greek life only to enter the recruitment process again, this time as a junior. I'm an idiot, but here we are. But here's the tea. I uploaded the first video in this series on bid day. I recorded all of these videos nearly a month ago, so as you're watching this, I'm either getting to know my new sisters or have officially exiled myself from Greek life as a whole, now and forever. Either way, like this video and subscribe, because we're doing it all over again. Was so cold at night and so hot during the day, and I was sick. I was always a house on one side of campus to a house on the other side of campus. I'm pretty sure I used my bike some nights. Like, I was like in a mini skirt, like biking in heels from one house to another. If anyone saw me doing that, I would honestly reject me too.